Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick podcast. And today I got my good friend Swami Rob on, and we are going to talk the Week 10 matchups, starts and sits. Lots of good information in there that you need to know about for this weekend's game. So let's do it. Let's check it out.
Listen up. It's time for the Fantasy Maverick podcast, starring the guy who's going to help you win that fantasy championship, Jimmy Maverick.
Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick podcast, coming at you from New Mexico. And with me, as always, for the matchup show is my good friend Swami Rob from the 94 Rock Morning Show. Swami, how you doing today?
All right, yourself?
I'm doing all right. I've come to the conclusion that my team in the 94 Rock League is just not going to do anything this year. That's just how it is, and it's very disappointing because I love that team when I drafted it, but they have just done nothing, and so I'm sitting in like 10th place, and I think that's where I'm going to stay.
Yeah, I think I'm on a pretty good skid in that league myself. I drafted a great team in that league, but 3 pretty big injuries, a couple of COVID infections, and I finally get CMC back last week. He's huge for me, and now he's right back on the injured list after 1 week.
That's right, after 1 week.
Yeah, I know. And then the worst part of it was last week I was really hurting for a running back. I believe it was in that league. And so I made the mistake. It was Monday, okay? And I was within 6 points of winning my game against the second place team in the league. And I was thinking, man, why do I have a funny feeling that P. Ryan is not going to get it done tonight? And so I thought, maybe I can raid the waiver wire, and Burkhead was sitting there available, and I went back and forth all day. Do I just drop P. Ryan and go with Burkhead? And then I just said, man, screw it. I'm going to ride with P. Ryan, and I came within 2 points.
Oh.
And if I'd have picked up Burkhead, I'd have been just fine, and I would have won that game. Ended the skid and been right in contention for that league, too. And I hate decisions like that because I have Burkhead in another league, and aside from 1 big week, he's lame. And I thought, well, I picked up P. Ryan after a big week, and he hasn't done squat since. So hell with that guy. I don't even care if he has big weeks the rest of the way. I'm dropping him just out of spite.
If you want to hear a crazy story, man, I do this tournament league, Fantasy Football Players Championship. I got some entries in there, and I've got a team that is currently in last place. Now, it's in last place because I've had over 1,450 points scored against me in the first 9 weeks of the season.
Right.
But the way it works is
wait. How many?
1,450 points. 1,450 points
Wow.
scored against me by other teams. No other team
Damn.
scored that many points, but they've scored that many points against my team, right? So the way you make it to the playoffs is they usually take the top 4 teams, but the fourth team is the highest scoring team that's left after the first 3 teams are taken. Well, right now, my last place team with 2 wins is currently qualified for that 4th slot because I've scored the 4th most points in this league. So I'm going to have a 2-win team. If I can ride out the next 2 weeks, I got to score a lot of points the next 2 weeks. I got to keep up my point scoring. But I could literally make it to the playoffs with a 2-win team in this tournament. So that kind of makes me feel good.
Yeah, but then how do you like your chances? How do you like your chances of that team once they do make the playoffs, though? If you've got a 1-loss record like that, anything can happen, but right?
Yeah, the team's a good team. It scores points. I got Tyler Lockett and Russell Wilson, and so I've been scoring obviously a lot of points in this team. It'd be great because I got Eckler on it too. It'd be great if Eckler's back by the time the playoffs roll around on week 12. But just an example of how crazy nuts this season has been. And I got all these teams which are really good, but they're just getting annihilated by how many points the opponents are scoring against them. So,
yeah.
But anyway, what are you going to do?
There's a big money league that I'm in. I bought into one league it costs some money. And I like to do that once a year just because I'm a gambling man, right? So this league is pretty competitive. And I've got the second best record. I've only lost 2. But the guy who was in first place in the other division, I'm in first in my division, he's undefeated. And I look at his team, and it's good. It's really good, but it's not great. But this dude keeps getting wins on fluky things, and nobody's touching this guy. And I'm starting to get kind of pissed off about it. I almost feel like the dude must be cheating somehow. I don't know how that is, but I don't know how he keeps winning.
I mean, I've been looking. Obviously, I'm fuming with a lot of my teams, and I'm just looking like, how can this team be doing so poorly? And I look at all these teams that are above me that are currently in playoff position, and I look at how many points have been scored against them, and it's like 200 points less than my team, over the course of the season. I mean, it's just like they've somehow managed to get the matchups on the right week when their opponent doesn't score any points. And so, yeah, of course they're sitting at way high up. Not unlike, I mean, the one that's not doing that though in our league is Zeke and Destroy, who's killing it both on the points scored that he is scoring each week and on the record. I mean, that's how you do it. That's how you know you got a really good team, is when your team's doing that. But I got to say.
Right. But, I got to tell you, all right, in my big money league, real quick before we get to the games,
sure.
I'm going to read to you my roster.
Okay.
And you tell me, who do you think is the reason that suddenly I'm not as competitive as I was and don't feel like I can take it, where 4 weeks ago, I thought I had a great chance of winning the big money. Okay, so here's my team. Russell Wilson is my quarterback.
All right.
Currently, I have Zeke Elliott and Mike Davis as my running backs.
Okay.
Now, my receivers, I've got Tyreek Hill. I've got Kenny Galladay. I've been using Colt Beasley in a flex. He does all right. I've also got Jonnu Smith and Rob Gronkowski as tight ends. I flexed Gronkowski last week. I got the Steelers D, and I got Younghoe Koo as my kicker. Solid team, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good.
Who's the guy that's dragging me down right now that shouldn't be?
Zeke is the one. And Galladay just hasn't done much either. Galladay's a real disappointment because the dude's a contract year player. You looked at what he did last year with Stafford, and Stafford too has also been a total bust this year. But I'm super disappointed because, again, I always love contract year players because of their upside, and he just hasn't delivered, which is
well, part of that's been because of injuries. I get.
Yeah, I mean, he's missed a ton of time.
He's done well for me when he's been playing. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. But the sad thing about this is I got lucky with Mike Davis when one of my other running backs went down. He's done pretty well for me as an RB2. If Zeke was old Zeke, I'd be in great shape here.
Sure.
But instead, I'm gonna. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to limp across the finish line because I can't get the production I'm getting out of Zeke anymore, and I don't think I'm likely to.
Well, all you need is just to make the playoffs, and then you can figure out what you're going to do then. So,
yeah, there's that.
I got to say, man, if you're looking for some running backs, there's a couple I was looking at on the Tuesday podcast. J.D. McKissick. No, is it J.D. McKissick? And who's the other Washington running back besides Antonio Gibson? I forgot the right name.
I'm trying to blank.
Anyway, dude got 14 targets last week. 14 targets from Alex Smith. And so it's like, dude, get that guy on your team. And so I was actually able to pick him up in a couple of leagues. But
yeah, sweet. All right, cool.
Yeah. So all right. So let's talk about the matchups this week, man. Week 10, bye weeks this week. We got Kansas City, Atlanta, Dallas, and the Jets. So there are some pretty big fantasy heavy hitters here that are missing out this week. Thursday Night Football kicks off with the Colts at the Titans. And I think this is a very interesting game because you've got a bad offense in the Colts against a bad defense in the Titans, and you have a good offense in the Titans against a bad defense in the Colts. So it's like, how's this going to play out for fantasy? What do you think?
I think the guys from Tennessee are probably going to be money this week. I don't know about Indy's offense is really nobody. All right, Hines might surprise you and get you at 12, 13 points. But other than that, there's nobody on Indy's offense that scares me at all.
I got to say, I do like the matchup for Phil Rivers. So he looks like a good streaming option if you need a quarterback this week. Titans are top 10 for opposing quarterbacks. But I got to say, on that Indy team, I can't really recommend starting anyone else because the backfield's kind of a mess and the receivers aren't that good. T.Y. Hilton may be back this week, but there's just not a lot of production there. Really risky starts across the board. And on the flip side, you've got the Titans who are a pretty good offense, but Ryan Tannehill and Jonnu Smith both have terrible, terrible matchups, really, really tough. And Indy is also top 2 against running back. So even Derrick Henry, who's actually been pretty disappointing the past few weeks, I think he continues in this slump. But, I mean, again, it's just going to be a tough game all around. So
if anybody can hold Derrick Henry down, it's going to be Indy. And Jonnu Smith, what happened to you, dude? Where did you go? You went from money to just sucking for about 3 straight weeks now. Seriously.
Yeah, it's been tough, and I mean, I don't think you definitely don't want to start him this week. That's for sure.
Nope.
So let's go on to the Sunday games, the early games. We got another NFC least game. We got the Eagles at the Giants. At 3 wins, Eagles are in the lead in their division. Most wins in that division. That's kind of sad. But as far as the Eagles are concerned, I do not like Carson Wentz, and I don't like Dallas Goedert. The Giants are actually top 10 against both those positions. But on the flip side, I think Evan Ingram, Travis Fulgham, those are both starts. I think they're both good. But the Wayne Gallman, Devonta Freeman backfield of the Giants, I think you should just steer clear of. I think it's a trap, man. I would not trust.
You know what, man? Every once in a while, Gallman looks like he might break out, but he never quite does. But I got to tell you, the catch that Ebron made, was it Monday night or was it their Sunday game? Did you see the catch where Daniel Jones threw the rainbow to him over the shoulder, full sprint? That's not a catch a tight end's supposed to make. That was amazing.
Right. And, well, again, Ingram looks like another good start this week. Philly is –
Or Ingram, that was it.
Points to tight ends.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
So there you go. So let's see here. Also, I think you should start the Philly defense. I think they're a good streaming option this week. The Daniel Jones turnover machine is there and happening, and there's points to be made. So I think that's a good start.
Nice.
Then we've got the Jaguars at the Packers. We don't even really know who the quarterback's going to be for the Jags this week. Are they gonna stick with the rookie? Are they going to go back to Minshew? I'm not sure what's going to happen there. But the one play I do like on the Jags is to start James Robinson, who's been great this year. He's been great fan. If you drafted him, he was like a 10th or 11th round pick. He has been money, man. He has been really, really good this year. But Green Bay is second best in the league for opposing running backs. So it's going to be a good game for him. So definitely start him. But as far as the rest of the Jags, man, boy, I would not start them. It's going to be a really tough game. Green Bay is a force against quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends. So there's not going to be a lot happening with the rest of that team. It'll be different than last week's game when they played the super easy Houston defense. This is a totally different kind of game. So
let me ask, what the hell happened to Minshew? Did I miss something? It's not like I keep up with the Jaguars, but all of a sudden he's not out there. Did he get hurt?
He got hurt. Yeah, he got hurt.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah, and so I'm drawing a blank on the guy that they brought in, but
so's everybody else.
Yeah. But anyway, it's another lost season for the Jags. As far as on the other side of the ball, Packers love all the matchups. The Jags defense will get decimated here. Start all your Packers. So I think they're good. Yeah. Now let's see here. Who do we got? Oh, here's another game that doesn't look to be super great for fantasy, but Washington at the Lions. J.D. McKissick, that is the guy I was talking about earlier. Got 14 targets last week with Alex Smith. Has an excellent matchup. Antonio Gibson is also really, really good. So I love both those guys to start. But on the flip side, man, I think you should sit Matthew Stafford. Washington is top 10 against the quarterback. And really the only player I really like on the Lions this week is TJ Hawkinson because he's got a top 5 matchup. So that's where I'm at.
Isn't Hawkinson on the COVID list?
I don't think he is.
I thought he was. I thought he was one of the guys that was listed as possible COVID. Maybe that was last week. I don't know.
Well, he was on the COVID list earlier in the season.
Oh, okay. There you go. I thought it was last week.
No, I haven't heard anything about that. He's healthy. He's good. I would go ahead and play him. Right. So I think he's going to be good this week. Now, next up, we got Texans at the Browns. This looks like a great fantasy game, and Nick Chubb might be back. So would you start Nick Chubb if he is a go this week?
Yeah. What choice do you have? What other running backs you got sitting there? I hemmed and hawed on whether I was going to play McCaffrey last week. I said he's going to be full speed. And I said, well, I got to start him. Look what happened. Somebody's offered me a trade for Chubb in another league, and my team is seriously like 0-8, and I'm thinking, why not? And I thought, no, you know what? I'm keeping him just to spite everybody, so I'm keeping him. So I'll start him.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying it's probably going to be a 50-50 split with Kareem Hunt. I'm really disappointed at Kareem Hunt. Never really was able to do anything during this past month with Chubb out. But obviously, I think that's a good thing to start Chubb this week against this defense. I think he's going to be just fine. Again, starts all across the board, both sides. I think, Deshaun Watson, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, all in top 5 matchups. Duke Johnson, I think, is a great start. If that's another guy that should be picked up because David Johnson's in the concussion protocol. Jarvis Landry, Rashad Higgins, great starts. I mean, there's some good fantasy production that's going to happen in this game, and hopefully the weather will be good. Last time I was saying that the Browns were in a great offensive situation was that downpour game where it ended up being like 10-6 was the final score. It was terrible for fantasy.
16-6. Yeah, that was hard.
Yeah, I didn't account for the weather, and so, but anyway, this looks like it's definitely going to be a good matchup this week. But watch the weather. Make sure you check the weather the morning of. So,
man, we are cruising into that time of year where weather is a big factor, and I always bring this up as a cautionary tale. But I'll never forget in 2007 when I was about to win a big league, and it was the week that the Patriots were playing, I think, the Jets, okay? And I had a decent backup quarterback, and I didn't think, because the weather forecast was so bad, that maybe it would be time to sit Brady. They weren't going to be throwing the ball a lot. They were going to ground and pound. I forget who the running back was back then. So I think I pulled Brady and ended up starting somebody else because of the weather. And then I changed my mind and put Brady back, and sure enough, I think he got like 11 points that day. And the guy that I had on the bench didn't. So, and it was all because of the weather. I mean, right. So seriously, that plays a factor,
Oh, that's always the worst when you change a player out, and then at the last second you switch it out again, and then the player you put back in just bombs. Like you thought he was going to bomb, and he does, and it's like, why didn't I just stick with what I thought in the beginning? But I get it.
Well, yeah, if you've got a quarterback who just lights it up with big numbers, a Russell Wilson type, an Aaron Rodgers type, a Drew Brees type, a Tom Brady type. But man, if they're playing like the Jets or Buffalo in a December game, the weather's going to be a huge factor. They're not going to throw the ball that much, so you've got to think about that. Right. And unfortunately, that's playoff time in fantasy. Is about the time the December games are happening.
Yep.
So that can really screw you.
I sure can. So let's move on, man. Now this next one is going to be an interesting game. We got the Buccaneers at the Panthers. It's a conference game, but also both these teams coming off of very disappointing games. I mean, Panthers obviously did much better than most people expected and fell short.
They did.
Buccaneers just got spanked. So who do you think is going to bounce back better this week? Who do you think Brady's going to be back this week?
I got to say, Matt Rule is a Coach of the Year candidate. I really like what he's done with that.
Oh, yeah.
Now Tampa Bay has to respond this week. They barely beat the Giants. They got their asses kicked by New Orleans. This is where they got to put their foot down. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if Carolina ends up winning this game. It wouldn't surprise me. I think Carolina is sneaky good.
They are good, and their defense is really solid, man. I mean,
yes.
They are just tops across the board. They're like top 10 in most categories. But I gotta say, man, I love Curtis Samuel this week. I do like. That's really the one I like the most, especially now that CMC is probably out. They've been using Curtis Samuel a lot, like they use CMC, both in the run and the pass game. So I really like his emergence. But I got to say, man, the Tampa Bay defense, pretty darn good too, even though they didn't show it last week. I've got a feeling it's going to be a low-scoring game. On the other team, on the Buccaneers, obviously Tom Brady's going to bounce back. I would have no problem starting him this week. But the Tampa Bay receivers, all three of these guys are healthy now. You got Godwin, Evans, and Antonio Brown, and I think they're just going to vampire each other for production, and like no one's going to get more than 6 targets. And
probably, man. That's frustrating. I gotta laugh at all the people I watched bum rushing Antonio Brown on their rosters a couple weeks ago, thinking he was going to be the AB of old. He didn't do jack on Monday night. I don't like that guy. So I'm happy to see him tank. And if you rushed out and got him, it sucks to be you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's again, and it's also been like 2 years since he's really played, and he's in his 30s. And so there is a clear decline that you're not going to see the Antonio Brown of 3 or 4 years ago. So I think he's overhyped as is. But, again, like I said, it is a very talented receiving core. I just don't see how any one of these guys outplays any of the other guys, and they're just going to distribute the ball pretty evenly between them.
I have noticed a pattern, though. I have noticed a pattern. I'm a Mike Evans owner, and I have noticed that although the ball tends to get spread around, and even Gronk has kind of figured into that equation a little bit in the last month or so, right? But it seems like Mike Evans is the one that you can count on to at least find the end zone once out of all those guys. So you'll get something out of him. Yeah, I mean, just don't expect much. I think it's going to be a disappointing across the board because it is a good defense too. It's a good pass defense. Yeah. Also, that Bucs backfield is very troublesome right now. Although Fournette is a pretty safe bet. I think I'd feel comfortable starting him, but I don't think I could start Ronald Jones right now because there's a chance they could be falling behind again. So there you go. So that's where we're at. So Sunday afternoon games. Let's move on. So we got the Chargers at the Dolphins. Man, at the beginning of the season, do you think you would have been talking about the favored Dolphins, who are at 5-3 right now? Isn't that their record? That is their record. Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good turnaround too. That's pretty impressive. And I think this is going to be a high-scoring fantasy game. So I really like this game for fantasy. I think there's some good options here. There's something that's long overdue about the Miami Dolphins being competitive again. When the Raiders are good, when the Cowboys are good, when the Steelers are good, when the Dolphins are good, or even when Washington is good. Face it, man, that feels old school to me. So if the Dolphins decide they want to get pissed off and get good again, I'm all for it. Brian Flores is a good coach, man. Yeah. And plus, for you Lobo fans, Jason Saunders, ex-UNM kicker, is lighting it up. He's set a franchise record, man. We got to be proud of that guy. That's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I got to say, I love Tua as a streaming option this week. I actually picked him up in a couple of leagues where I got Patrick Mahomes on bye. So I'm kind of excited to see what happens there. Justin Herbert also has been outstanding. I'm really interested to see where I mean, these rookie quarterbacks are having a pretty good season. Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, now Tua, where they're going to go next year. And it's certainly my general philosophy in drafts is to wait as long as possible to take my quarterback. I think there's going to be some excellent quarterback options available late just because there's so many good options out there. I mean, I would love to have Justin Herbert as my quarterback next year. I think that's a great choice. I picked up Justin Herbert early on in the year when Matt Stafford had something go. I picked up Justin Herbert like week 3, and I've started him ever since. I never put Matt Stafford back as starter, and he's done great for me. Yeah, he's been fantastic. Yeah. Like I said, just about everybody's a start. The only one I would sit is Hunter Henry because Miami is top 7 against tight ends. But everyone else, man, this is a good game. This is going to be a good fantasy game. And Dolphins are favored by 2.5 points over the Chargers. So would you take that bet, Swami? Would you take Yeah. Furthermore, I'd take it in the last 30 seconds when the Chargers blow a 21-point lead with 5 minutes left in the game and the Dolphins win. That's what they do. Sure. All right. So next up, we got the Broncos at the Raiders. So there's another conference game we got going on. I got to say, again, for streaming options for quarterbacks, Drew Lock and Derek Carr, both excellent options this week. Both these defenses are top 5 for the opposing quarterback. So I think those are great options. I also like Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay on the ground. Again, it's a bottom 5 rush defense in Las Vegas. So that's really good. But on the flip side, on Las Vegas' side, man, Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller both have really tough matchups this week. I mean, obviously those are players that you're never going to sit, but just be aware. And if you have a better option, maybe put them in. But I think it's going to be a tough day for those guys. If you've got a better option than Darren Waller sitting on your bench, then you've got a wealth of tight ends because who has two good tight ends,
Well, actually, I've got a team which has Waller and Hawkinson, so I'm pretty happy with that.
Solid.
So that's good.
Yeah.
All right. So next we got the Bills at the Cardinals. This game also looks like another great fantasy game, man. I'm just really excited about this. Josh Allen is coming off that 400-yard, 3-touchdown game against Seattle. This matchup isn't quite as good as that one, but I think it's still a plus matchup. So Josh Allen's gonna rock it this weekend. And again, I don't see any sits. It's just like all starts. Everyone go. Yeah. It's all good. The only ones I would sit would be the defenses, man. Don't play the defenses.
Yeah, and I think Kyler Murray is really going to prove something this week because the Bills defense, everybody assumed they were going to be so great. I think they've proven to be fairly overrated. But it's still a good test for Kyler Murray, man. He's so much fun to watch. I bet you he still ends up lighting it up. I would be surprised if Arizona pulled this game out because they get a little bit of pride after next week. I'm not saying they're going to, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and I got to say, Zeke and Destroy, man, they have Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins stacked, and I think that's why they're number one.
Perfect.
In our league.
That's great. Stack. Yeah, it's great. That's great.
All right, so next up we got the Niners at the Saints. Saints obviously coming off that huge win, so I think and they're looking healthy. Niners aren't. Man, can you trust the Niners backfield? I sat Jerick McKinnon in a bunch of leagues last week to my chagrin.
So did I.
He scored like 15 points.
I know he did.
And Hasty did nothing. It just seems like a hot hand back there. Impossible to tell. I can't. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to start Jerick McKinnon this week, but I'm not sure I can.
Jerick McKinnon, I can't trust McKinnon as far as I can throw him. I've put him in. I sat him when he had big weeks. I see the big week. I put him back in. He takes a crap. He's 1 week on, 1 week off. So he was on last week. Take it to the bank. It'll be like clockwork. He's going to suck this week. I've seen a pattern. I'm serious.
That's right. This kind of guy, you bench him and he does a great game, then you start him and he sucks, and then so you bench him again and he has a great game. It's like
I wonder if he's just sitting there on the bench watching all the fantasy owners that started this week. He goes, you know what? I'm just going to mess with them. I'm going to suck this week. And then when they bench me, I'm going to kick ass. He's just out there to torment you.
I gotta say, man, this is gonna be a tough game for the Saints. You know, San Francisco is top 3 against running backs, but of course, I'm not sitting Alvin Kamara. No way, no day. Jared Cook looks like a sit. San Francisco's top 4 against tight ends. But you know, obviously, you're gonna start who you're gonna start. But I really can't see anyone on the Niners who I would start right now. I just not seeing anyone. I definitely wouldn't start that defense.
And side note, by the way, at the starting of the season, I had Kansas City and New Orleans in the Super Bowl. Not a big stretch, but that's who I picked. And I think right now it's pretty clear New Orleans is the best team in the NFC.
Yeah, they're having a great season, but they will find a way to lose in the last seconds to Minnesota in the playoffs.
That's assuming Minnesota makes it. Yeah, right.
All right, so next up, again, we got Seahawks at the Rams. I got to tell you, man, the Seahawks to me just look like a team that's going to be exit in the first round of the playoffs because they can't stop anyone. They have no defense. I love that offense, but there's no D. But I think this game looks like a gonzo fantasy game, man. I think it's one where you got to start as many people as you can. Since the Seahawks can't stop anyone, start all the Rams. But on the flip side, you got Russell Wilson facing a top 3 quarterback defense, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett facing a top 2 wide receiver defense. But are you going to sit any of those guys, Swami?
No, hell no, I'm not going to do that, man.
No way.
And you might be right about Seattle in the playoffs, man. But because the Seahawks they go as Russell Wilson goes, and as Buffalo showed, if you can kind of get in his head, they're very beatable. You're right. But Russell Wilson's been unconscious. I don't see him. He's going to bounce back. I have a feeling he's going to make the Rams defense look a little chunky this week.
One thing also I've been hearing is DK Metcalf. They're saying in next year's draft, he is going to be probably an early second-round pick, like one of the top 5 wide receivers taken along the likes of, Hopkins and Thomas and, all those guys. Would you take Metcalf in the second round of next year's draft if he's available when he gets.
Well, it depends. Who did I draft in the first? Did I get a running back?
I mean, I'm just saying. Do you have enough confidence that you would think that DK Metcalf would be a high-end wide receiver one next season for your fantasy team? Because that's what you're doing when you're taking a wide receiver that early.
Sure, why not?
I'm not sure I can pull the trigger. I'm not sure I could do it. But he's very good.
If I ended up getting a really great running back right off the bat, if I took care of that need first, obviously the best wide receivers might not be sitting there when I come back around. By that point, Thomas is gone and some of your other great receivers. So if that's the best receiver that's sitting on the board in the second round, sure, I'd do it.
All right, cool.
And that's why I'm in 4th or 5th place in most of my leagues, because I do stuff like that.
I got to say, man, this past year in drafts, DK Metcalf as a 4th round pick was a fantastic choice.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's I'm looking at like next year, who's going to be the 4th round wide receivers who are going to be like the guys that are going to make that huge jump and put up wide receiver one numbers. I'm thinking Justin Jefferson is probably one.
Yeah.
That I'm going to be very interested in. And in like the 4th or 5th round, I think he's going to be one of those guys. But anyway, great year for Metcalf. I'm very excited he's done so well. Okay, so we got the Bengals at the Steelers. Now this one has a whole bunch of question marks because of Big Ben's COVID outbreak. He's on IR right now. You know, apparently it was one of the tight ends that he was sitting next to.
It was Vance McDonald who he was in close contact with. So there were 4 other players on the Steelers that were in close contact with McDonald. So they've been isolated. But the team was saying today that they expect he's going to play because he's not showing any symptoms. They can't predict exactly what will happen. But if he should get sick in the next couple of days, late scratch. But I bet you they're going to play.
And this might be a game that they delay a few days also. You know, especially, and I don't know if Big Ben has gotten actually diagnosed with COVID. I don't think he has. He's just
they're just keeping an eye on him. Okay, they're just keeping an eye on him.
Testing him. So if he gets a couple of negative tests in a row, he'll be back on the team. Anyway, as far as starts on this game, love James Conner. Cincinnati's one of the best teams in the league to run against, so he's going to have a huge game. And I also really like Eric Ebron, as this is a top 2 matchup for him as well. So I think Ebron is a great option for tight ends. You know, obviously he's not a guy you would hold as your number 1 tight end, but he'd be a good option this week, I think, for sure. And then as far as on the other side, you know, the Pittsburgh defense is number 5 against the run, number 4 against quarterbacks, number 10 against the pass. Would you be comfortable starting any Bengals players against this defense?
No, I wouldn't. But then again, I didn't expect the Cowboys to hang 23 points on them or whatever they ended up scoring, or 17. They're not immortal, but no, I would not be comfortable starting any Bengals against them.
Yeah, I'm. Fortunately, I'm in a situation where I don't have any Cincinnati players this season, so I don't have to worry about it. But I'd be very cautious about starting Cincinnati. And if you've got a better option, put them in instead. So the Sunday night game, this is a game that looked really good preseason, but how excited do you see it now? Ravens at the Patriots. Certainly not the marquee matchup you were hoping for at this point in the season, but Ravens, I think, are going to roll this one. I think it's going to be an easy.
Well, you know what, man? As long as the Patriots are getting their ass kicked on prime time, it's a great matchup for me. I'll be tuning in. Trust me.
It's a lot of Schadenfreude, you know?
Yep.
But as one caution on the Ravens side, one matchup I do not like is Mark Andrews. Pats are number 2 against tight ends, and obviously they always take out the best player. I think that would be Mark Andrews, so I expect I would sit him. I would definitely sit him this week. But on the flip side, I think both J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are a start. I think it's a good matchup against the run. I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to run this ball right down the Patriots' throat. And so those guys are definitely starts. But on the other side, Damian Harris and Rex Burkhead, I would not start them as the Ravens are number 1 against the run this season. So James White, you can start, but no one else. So.
Yep. I'm with you.
And finally, we got the Monday Night Football game. We got the Vikings at the Bears. again, looks like a great fantasy game. I got everybody as a start. I think Nick Foles is a great streaming option this week against that Vikings defense. Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson have a top 3 matchup. David Montgomery is a top 10 matchup. Allen Robinson and Darryl Mooney, top 2 matchup. Jimmy Graham, a great option, and he continues to get really good volume every week. So, again, starts across the board. So it should be a good fantasy game for everybody.
Yeah, I like it. Definitely. Cool. Yeah.
So, Swami, we're getting close to the end of the season here, man. I mean, it's week 10. Most everybody has only like 4 games left before the playoffs start. So if you're going to make your move, you got to make it now and start your run to get yourself into the playoffs. You can't slack at this point of the season.
This is always the point where you're sitting there looking at guys that have been sitting on your bench most of the year, and you're afraid to drop them because you want to hold on to them for later. This is where you need to have the balls to start dropping them and picking up dudes and trying things because at this point those guys aren't going to do you any good.
Definitely.
They're not going to get healthy or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I purged Preston Williams from a number of my leagues.
Yeah,
I have purged Cam Akers. It was a very disappointing play this season. But yeah, there's guys that you just need to say bye to because if they're not helping your team now, you need to find someone who is. And they're, again, watching my Tuesday podcast is where you're going to get those names of guys you need to pick up, like J.D. McKissick, who is a fantastic option, having a great run here towards the end of the season. That's what you want. That's the kind of players you want on your team. So, Swami, good luck in Week 10. Everybody out there, good luck in Week 10. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe down below. And if you have any questions about these players or any ones that we didn't talk about, leave a message down in the comments, and I'd be happy to hear from you guys. So thanks again for watching. Have a great fantasy week, everybody. Have a good day, Swami.
You too.